I've expressed before my love and adoration for the Ray Harryhausen pantheon of stop-motion animation meets live-action monster movie classics. 1981's Clash of the Titans was the finale, and what a swan song it is. In some ways, his most celebrated and most iconic work. Certainly, it is likely the most enduring of this pantheon in contemporary popular culture, having been gifted with a 2010 remake as well as a 2012 sequel to said remake. The satiating glory of viewing Harryhausen creatures is never lost on me. I feel cuddled when I witness his animation, and I suspect a lot of others still feel the same way. Quite obviously, I never viewed Harryhausen vehicles upon their initial release, and yet they retain an escapist power. I don't know if it is the fact that it is stop motion in and of itself so much as it is such charismatic, personable stop motion. Harryhausen wanted to do Willis O'Brien proud, and I'm sure he would have been. There is a magical fantasy charm to this feature which whisks me away like Perseus atop Pegasus or Andromeda in the cage carried by a giant vulture. Just watching its animated creations move about and interact with separately filmed images is uncannily sorcerous. It isn't that it looks real, it's that it looks cool. But its romantic, sincere tenor, the shameless pride with which it carries itself as a post-Star Wars successor to the old Hollywood Harryhausen romps, it brings a tear to my eye. Truly, I have the definition of a soft spot for 1981's Clash of the Titans. Let's read out the creature list here. Vulture, Pegasus, Calabos, partially, Bubo the R2-D2 owl, two-headed dog, Medusa, scorpions, and the Kraken. This is quite possibly Harryhausen's most impressive film overall, if not for maybe Golden Voyage of Sinbad. I think of that film's Vishnu statue as the most breathtaking breathtakingly realized Harryhausen creation. Excuse me. I particularly love in Clash of the Titans, I particularly love the two-headed dog, Medusa, and especially the scorpion trio. The way that Scorpion's limbs and tail move about in unison is basically satisfying in a real lizard brain sort of way. It carries this unignorable onslaught of a more sophisticated, refined admiration toward its skilled animation. The Kraken itself is a marvel, and has been named as Harryhausen's masterpiece before, although I feel as though its marvel was only truly captured in 2 or so shots. The Kraken behind its initial rock, that freehand reveal, and then he moves left out of frame in over the course of a few edits in between. That is one of the 10 or 5 best sequences of Harryhausen animation. Then again, as he looks over the sacrifice of Andromeda, that's one of the most archetypally Jungian, beautiful encapsulations of our species' artistic tradition in that one single frame. Wow, more words would be an injustice. Other than those 2 shots, there was too much close-ups of his head and his unmoving torso. This is why I wouldn't necessarily consider the Kraken as Harryhausen's best creature or at least sequence in either his entire career or within Clash of the Titans itself. Nevertheless, it is one of the greatest movie monsters of all time, as are several of Harryhausen's. Quite a few of them, actually. Just to be clear, I don't necessarily prefer practical effects to CGI. CGI has the capacity to realize far more possibilities and just be far more interesting than practical effects ever could or can. The fluidity of digital could be seen one day as, and theoretically just is, the greatest revolution in the history of this art. However, I like all practical effects, pretty much. I love Roger Corman monsters, I love Henson puppets, Harryhausen creatures, ILM makeup. It all pleases me. On the other hand, not all CGI makes me feel this way. At its best, the finest CGI compositions are among the finest creations in the history of animation. Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, and Lord of the Rings are obvious, but taken for granted is how graceful and alive King Kong appeared in 2005 and Godzilla in 2014. But, then again, King Kong in 2017 and Godzilla in 2019? Not so impressive. But then both of them in 2021 under the talented watch of Wingard looked great. Godzilla vs. Kong is actually instructive here because I actually really liked it. I loved the initial Gareth Edwards Godzilla, too much humans, whatever, but it occupied the place a digital Godzilla film could have always potentially occupied. A vision of authenticity and believability so as to maximize a degree of immersion into this fictional universe. My literal daydreams about what a CGI Gojira could be like, as opposed to that Emmerich crap, resembles what Gareth Edwards' vision actually was. And Wingard's in the 2021 crossover bash a construction nearing my vision of what a kaiju versus kaiju film could be in the digital age. I very much like Hideki Anno's Shin Gojira from 2016, although they weren't exactly trying to make Gojira himself look authentic and believable so much as the surrounding real world's response to him, if you know what I mean. Point is, CGI's artistic worth in an individual film varies, whereas I enjoy all manner of practical effects. CGI digital effects can and ought to be superior in principle, obviously. Now, some insist that there are far worse practical effects out there than even the giant claw. I'll have to take their word for it. And also that CGI could fulfill far more interesting things than ever conceived of in practical effects by virtue of it being able to realize non-Euclidean geometry. That I really couldn't agree with more, and I certainly don't think CGI's potential is necessary to it making the otherwise improbable appear believable or authentic or real spliced alongside live-action photography. That is certainly great too. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of James Cameron's Avatar, but for the very most part, I absolutely loved Villeneuve's Dune. CGI makes these things far more achievable without resorting to pure animation outright. And so naturally, I have viewed and will subsequently discuss the 2010 remake and 2012 sequel to remake of Clash of the Titans, sequel titled Wrath of the Titans. And how emblematic that both of these films star the human face of Avatar, Sam Worthington himself. Hooray. The 2010 film is directed by Louis Leterrier, and so it had little chance. Frankly, it being a remake is not only commercially cynical brand recognition, but also imaginatively limiting. There was a lot more to be done with a concept like King Kong, potentially, and many felt that Jackson was too indulgent and haughty with his depiction of the giant monster yarn. But consider a hypothetical Peter Jackson's or Guillermo del Toro's Clash of the Titans. Suddenly this film sounds a lot better, doesn't it? Really, it isn't the CGI here, it is the director. That being said, the initial prospect of let's film the story again but fill in the set pieces of CGI is inhibiting, unless you choose to do more with it. Present a modernist demonstration of the technology's inherent awe, not merely a convenient placeholder. If we are not impressed by video game cutscenes, there is no need to be impressed by anything in 2010's Clash of the Titans. Not that every CGI genre romp is the equivalent of a PlayStation 3 game, though under certain directors they may as well be. Unfortunately, the same can essentially be said of 2012's Wrath of the Titans, this time directed by esteemed author Jonathan Liebesman. I say unfortunately because I actually think that this is a better film than its 2010 predecessor. Not restrained by following the 1981 film's plot beats, Wrath of the Titans composes new 2010s era post-Avatar set pieces inspired by Greek mythology and a cut above Percy Jackson at that. Perseus fights off a chimera, that is a two-headed lion with a snake-headed tail, a group of angry cyclopes, the Minotaur in the Labyrinth, an army of Maghai, two upper torso conjoined twin-like warriors, Ares and Kronos. You might wish you were playing God of War instead, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not that bad, I mean. Compare that to the 2010 film, which merely opted for some scorpions, Medusa, Calibos, and Kraken. Wow, the bare minimum, and not even the vulture or the two-headed dog. Shame. Wrath of the Titans, insofar as both have a function, the mostly same function. I don't think Clash of the Titans 2010 sincerely intended to retell the original story for any artistic motive. That function being to serve as Greek mythology popcorn fodder. Wrath of the Titans is a superior picture, in my opinion, to 2010's Clash of the Titans insofar as this function is concerned, and really probably just in general. I mean, how can you judge these films outside of that function, frankly? 1981's Clash of the Titans is the best film of the three, and as much as I love it, it really ought not to be considering the technology involved. But then again, what could be done with that IP as an imaginative prison, so to speak, in the digital age, I mean? What inspired film director would approach, oh, let's do Clash of the Titans again, but with CGI instead, with an interesting vision? Very few, I'd imagine. And the results are two mediocre at best monster romps which are wildly inferior to a Ray Harryhausen vehicle from 1981. What the hell? Oh well. Oh, and just as a postscript, improvised tangent for Noel Oakeshott, mystery to the journey to the island, whatever that crap's called. It was not very good. Alright. That's the Easter egg you requested, asked for. And there it is. Have a great one, everyone. You too, Noel. See you tomorrow.